Washington, United States. The United States' political landscape was jolted on Thursday after the Justice Department announced that former FBI Director James Comey had been indicted on serious crimes by a federal grand jury. The development immediately set off fierce reactions across the country, with President Donald Trump hailing the move as a long-awaited act of justice, while critics warned of escalating political polarization. Comey, a longtime critic of Trump and a central figure in the turbulent years of the former president's administration, now faces allegations tied to the disclosure of sensitive information during his tenure at the Bureau. The indictment marks a dramatic turn in a saga that began years ago with bitter clashes between the two men. According to the Justice Department's official statement, the federal grand jury returned the indictment on Thursday. The department described the case as involving serious misdemeanors stemming from Comey's handling and alleged release of sensitive information during his time in office. While details of the indictment remain limited, the Justice Department emphasized that the move reflected the principle that no one is above the law. This message was underscored by Attorney General Pam Bondi, who issued a brief but pointed reaction. In a post on the X platform, formerly Twitter, Attorney General Pam Bondi wrote, "No one is above the law," without naming Comey directly. She later added, "Today's indictment reflects this Department of Justice's commitment to holding accountable those who abuse their positions of power to deceive the American people. We will follow the facts in this case." The indictment drew an immediate and celebratory response from former President Donald Trump, who has long accused Comey of undermining his presidency and of orchestrating investigations that he deemed politically motivated. Taking to his Truth Social platform, Trump declared, "Justice in America." In a follow-up comment, he did not hold back his personal disdain for the former FBI director, calling him one of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to and labeling him as corrupt. The former president's comments underscored the long-running animosity between the two men, an animosity that dates back to 2017 when Trump dismissed Comey as FBI chief amid the high-stakes investigation into possible Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. Comey's removal from the FBI in 2017 was one of the defining early moments of Trump's first term. At the time, the Bureau was actively investigating whether members of Trump's campaign team had colluded with Moscow to influence the election's outcome, a probe that infuriated the president and fueled political upheaval in Washington. The new indictment appears to be linked to actions Comey allegedly took both during and after his tenure as FBI director, particularly concerning the handling of sensitive information. Though the Justice Department's statement avoided delving into specifics, the case has reignited fierce debate over accountability and the politicization of law enforcement. The timing of the indictment is also notable. It came just days after Trump publicly urged Attorney General Bondi to act against Comey and other political figures he has long accused of misconduct. The sequence of events has prompted speculation about whether political pressures played a role, though officials at the Justice Department insist the move was driven solely by the evidence and the law. Archival footage captured Comey's prominent role in some of the most scrutinized political dramas of the past decade. In one clip from December 2018, he was seen speaking to reporters in Washington, often appearing calm and measured as questions swirled about his past decisions as the nation's top law enforcement official. Footage from June 8, 2017, showed Comey walking through the crowded corridors of Congress, flanked by security officers and journalists pressing for comments. As he moved past cameras, Comey responded to shouted questions with a single word, "Later." He would later testify in high-profile hearings, including a closely watched appearance before lawmakers that highlighted the tensions between his bureau and the Trump White House. In her statement on Thursday, Attorney General Bondi carefully avoided political framing while stressing the Justice Department's impartial role. Her words were widely interpreted as an attempt to reassure the public that the process would be guided by the evidence rather than by partisan agendas. Today's indictment reflects this Department of Justice's commitment to holding accountable those who abuse their positions of power to deceive the American people, she said. "We will follow the facts in this case." The remarks, though brief, echoed a familiar theme of accountability and transparency, which has become a recurring point of contention in an era of heightened political polarization. The personal and political feud between Trump and Comey has been one of the defining storylines of US politics in recent years. Their conflict began during the tumultuous months following the 2016 election and escalated as the Russia investigation gained steam. In 2017, Trump abruptly dismissed Comey from his post as FBI Director, a move that critics saw as an attempt to obstruct the Bureau's investigation. The firing intensified scrutiny on the White House and eventually led to the appointment of special counsel Robert Mueller, whose probe dominated headlines for the next 2 years. Throughout this period, Comey emerged as both a central witness and a vocal critic of Trump's leadership. His public statements and memoir painted a portrait of a president who, he claimed, pressured law enforcement officials for personal and political gain. Trump, in turn, frequently attacked Comey in speeches, interviews and social media posts, accusing him of partisanship and dishonesty. News of Comey's indictment reverberated swiftly through political circles in Washington and beyond. Supporters of Trump framed the development as long overdue accountability for a former top official they say acted improperly. Critics, however, warned that the move risks further eroding trust in the justice system by appearing to validate the grievances of a former president still deeply influential in Republican politics. Legal analysts have noted that while the indictment marks a significant milestone, the road ahead remains uncertain. The specific charges and the evidence supporting them will determine whether the case strengthens or undermines the Justice Department's credibility in the eyes of the public. For Attorney General Bondi and her department, the case represents a delicate balancing act. On one hand, the Justice Department seeks to uphold the principle that even the most senior officials can be held accountable under the law. On the other, it must navigate the perception that its actions are driven by political motives at a time when the department's impartiality is already under intense scrutiny. The indictment also raises broader questions about the long-standing norms surrounding the handling of sensitive government information, an issue that has ensnared figures across the political spectrum in recent years. Comey is expected to appear before a federal court in the coming weeks to respond to the charges. Legal experts predict that the case will be closely watched not only for its political ramifications, but also for the precedent it may set regarding the boundaries of accountability for high-ranking law enforcement officials. Trump, meanwhile, is likely to continue using the indictment as a rallying point for his supporters as he seeks to frame his political rivals as corrupt insiders. His reaction on Thursday suggested that he views the case as vindication of his long-standing claims about what he has called the deep state. The indictment of James Comey closes one chapter of a political and legal saga that has spanned nearly a decade while opening another. It underscores the deep divisions that continue to shape American politics and the justice system's struggle to maintain public trust in a time of unprecedented partisan conflict. As the case unfolds, both supporters and critics of the former FBI director will be watching closely, aware that its outcome could have far-reaching consequences not just for Comey himself, but also for the institutions that are central to the country's democracy. The developments on Thursday brought back into sharp focus the complex legacy of James Comey's years at the helm of the FBI and his ongoing rivalry with Donald Trump. The proceedings ahead will test not only the resilience of one of America's most prominent law enforcement figures, but also the public's confidence in the impartial administration of justice.